infatuated with the in-between, the ups and downs, the curves and the rounds. I'll bring it to your city or your hometown. I'll go back in time when the feeling was fine, when funkin' was legal and it wasn't a crime. Party people lined up and down the way, a bigger celebration than your birthday. Funkin' up the neighborhood, I felt the fool 'cause the funkin' was good. Funkin' in the city, funk you up in the woods. Funkin' up the neighborhood, funkin' up the neighborhood. I felt the fool 'cause the funkin' was good. Funkin' in the city, funk you up in the woods. Funkin' up the neighborhood. And I have seen the world pristine, funk you up in the bushes, funk you down in the trees. Now look around, all the frowns, the yellow, the white, the red and the brown. Now keep in mind, it never costs a dime, 'cause funkin' is free, I remember the time. Now look today, the streets are gray, time to take it back to yesterday. Funkin' in the neighborhood, I felt the fool 'cause the funk was good. Funk you in the city, funk you up in the woods. Funkin' up the neighborhood, funkin' up the neighborhood. I felt the fool 'cause the funk was good. It was good in the city, funk you up in the woods. Funkin' up the neighborhood. Funkin' up the neighborhood, I felt fool 'cause the funkin' was good. Funk you in the city, funk you up in the woods. Funkin' up the neighborhood, funkin' up the neighborhood. I felt fool 'cause the funkin' was good. Funk you in the city, funk you up in the woods. Funkin' up the neighborhood, funkin' up the neighborhood. I felt fool 'cause the funkin' was good. Funk you in the city, funk you up in the woods. Funkin' up the neighborhood, funkin' up the neighborhood. I felt fool 'cause the funkin' was good. Funk you in the city, funk you up in the woods. Funkin' up the neighborhood.
And we're live. Welcome to the Underdog Journey. My name is Wes. This guy is Steve Catronio, our special guest. So,
Hey,
Steve,
everyone.
it has been a while since we spoke with you, man.
Yeah, it has been a while. This is going to be fun to catch up.
Yeah, David is going to be super jealous. So he actually couldn't make it tonight. But I know for a fact he really, really, really wanted to talk to you again. So he's going to be super jealous, and I hope he comes into the chat so he can we can absorb his tears just a little bit.
Let's talk about all the stuff he wanted to talk about.
Exactly, and leave him completely out.
Yeah, fully.
So one of the reasons why David loves talking to you, Steve, is because you work for one of his favorite companies. His not only is one of his favorite companies, but one of the companies he also loves to just sort of he loves them and he loves to hate them. Because it is a love-hate relationship. You work for Disney, but you've been working in the FX industry for, I mean, your entire career.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I started, as you know, I started just as a kid when I was 15 years old in the special effects industry. Jumped right in and was working professionally on movies for about 10 or 12 years doing special effects, like makeup, creature effects, and props. And then that in the mid 90s, that transitioned into theme park work. And I eventually, in 97, ended up at Walt Disney Imagineering, which is where I've been now for, gosh, almost 26 years.
Man, that is so cool. I remember when I was a senior in high school, I took some art classes out at one of the art schools out there, and we had a behind the scenes tour of the Imagineering studios. And I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
I'm sure I didn't see you there, but like that would have been pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, totally. Didn't you get like a
I
honorary Imagineer badge or something? And
I still have it somewhere. Yeah, I still have it somewhere. I should wear it while we're talking. Here we go.
yeah, I remember you talking about that.
There we go. I'll just pin that.
There it is.
I'm officially an honorary Imagineer. So when I
Do you
crash,
remember? Oh, go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
saying when I crash your office, you guys aren't allowed to kick me out. I have the badge.
Nice. I was going to ask you, do you remember if you specifically went through our department, dimensional design, where we build and design all the models all the way up to the full-size production stuff? Like, do you remember if you toured through there?
I vaguely remember much of that place at all. Like it was in the late '90s. Like
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
it was, and I was having way too much fun. Like putting a bunch of art students in a hotel for a month at a time, unsupervised, was a terrible idea.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
I don't think that the hotel that sponsored the thing does it anymore. I think they backed out because there was too much damage.
They backed out right after you guys.
I don't blame them. Oh man, I'm surprised there were no deaths. Frankly,
That's funny though. I was probably there on campus when you came through. If it was the late '90s.
yeah, that would have been awesome. That would have been really
Oh my
cool.
gosh.
You'd be like, "Oh, you're that punk."
Yeah. Don't worry, I was a little punk too. Hey, I still am. Look.
Yeah, it's true. You're rocking the mohawk, man. So speaking of the mohawk, you got the orange going on, which reminds me of Halloween.
Yes.
You normally do like the big Grimwood Hollow Halloween extravaganza. You guys pulled it back a little bit this year, still kind of recovering from all the rigmarole of the last couple of years. But you sent me photos of your display, and
Yeah.
for people who didn't do a lot for Halloween, like you still decked it out, and you actually made a lot of those props, didn't you?
Yeah, we actually made pretty much everything for our yard. That's one of the things that we love is to since we have this know-how of how to create stuff, and I've been working in the industry so long and making things, we always apply that to our yard. And that's the fun thing about doing our yard is we're able to create everything from scratch and make just a really unique original experience for people to come and see, something that's different from all the other yard haunts that are out there, which
Mhm.
again, we love them all. They're all fun. But here in Southern California, there are millions of people decorating. And as you start to go around all the different yard displays, you start, you often start seeing the same things, like all
Right.
the big props from Home Depot and, and Hobby Lobby and Party City and whatever, you start seeing the same stuff. And so that's why, we really wanted to, utilize our skills and make a really fun, unique attraction. That's just something original for people to check out. And so yeah, we didn't do our big, massive Grimwood Hollow this year. We, for health reasons, and
Right.
I think I told you my parents had some medical emergencies and we ended up taking care of them. And for a number of different reasons, we just were not able to pull it off this year. So we literally last minute, kind of just grabbed some of the stuff that we had already, had made from previous years and just kind of threw it up in our yard, a couple scarecrows and a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns and
Mm-hmm.
a few other goodies and a little projection effect with a ghost and stuff. But it was literally, it was 1 or 2 days. We just slammed that up really fast. And we, because we still have to celebrate. It's Halloween. That's our
course.
holiday. That's our favorite time of year. And so we had to do something, but yeah, we were literally living with my parents for the entire month, caring for them and
Mhm.
nursing them back to health. And we got home just a couple days before Halloween. So we were exhausted emotionally and
Yeah.
physically, but it's our month, and we're like, no way are we not going to celebrate. So we had to throw up a few things for the trick or treaters, and and have some fun. So
Yeah,
we
that
did
is awesome.
it.
So everybody watching and listening, go to YouTube, go to Grimwood Hollow on YouTube, and check out his stuff because Steve, your work is amazing. I mean, you're just
Thanks, bud.
craftsmanship and artistry is just next level.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's what I've loved to do my entire life. I mean, literally, that's kind of how I started even getting into the career I got into. It all started really with my love of Halloween and
Mm-hmm.
horror and everything. And I started doing little yard displays even when I was just 8 or 9 years old. And then they got more and more elaborate throughout the years. And then I eventually got into the industry. And then they really got elaborate because
Right.
because then I got the skills to really be able to take it up another level, and make it really crazy and unique. So yeah, so it's just been my thing my whole life.
Yeah. But I've told you numerous times, if you ever wanted to really make some money, like big money, you could easily put Spirit Halloween out of business with the quality of your work.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So everybody, check out Grimwood Hollow on YouTube. I mean, his work is just ridiculous, and you've worked on some major movies too. So I mean, and you have a lot of behind the scenes stuff and stories, and I mean, the content on your channel is just so good.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's I'm trying to have like a wide range of fun different content for people to look at, so not only is it the Halloween stuff, but like you said, yeah, I like to sometimes post some of my own personal behind the scenes footage from movies that I worked on. Like I have stuff from Men in Black and
Mm-hmm.
Stargate, Broken Arrow, and I have a whole bunch of other movies that I'm going to be posting some behind the scenes footage of, and all the making of stuff that we did, props and everything. So I'll be posting more of that. And then also a lot of tutorials. So for people who are excited to learn how to create some of these things, I've been posting a lot of tutorials on there too. So you can go on there,
Yeah.
learn how to do some of this and apply it to your own yard haunt or whatever crazy things you want to create.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing. That's one thing that we should do. We should do a show where you join the show, and David and we actually try to recreate some of your tutorial stuff.
Oh my God!
While you're there,
man.
while you're there, seeing how completely inept we are and not good at anything physical.
Dude, that'd be a blast, man.
Yeah.
I'd love to laugh at your creations.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what would happen. So we'll make that happen.
No, dude, it's funny, and I tell this to people all the time. It's like, working in this industry and creating some of the insane things that I've been so fortunate to have a hand in, people see this stuff and they're like, blown away by a lot of this stuff, a lot of these creations and everything. And I think, I taught classes for over 20 years on mask making and sculpting and special effects and different things. And one of the things that I always just, ask people, because they come up to me and, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. You're an insane artist. I could never do this. And I always ask them, well, have you ever tried? And 99% of them say no. And I tell them, I go, well, you know what? There was a time in my life where I thought I could never sculpt either, and I would never be able to do that stuff. And it's because I never tried it.
Fair point.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many people have these hidden talents and skills and stuff within them, but they've never actually just tried to explore that. When I was teaching classes, there were people from all different walks of life, all different ages, and we'd get them in there, and I was blown away sometimes at their first sculptures they've ever done. Like their first sculptures blew away the first stuff I ever did.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and that when you see that, it shows the potential there, for like there's something there. And if they were to keep at it and keep trying and keep practicing, it could easily develop into something really amazing. It's just I think for a lot of people, it's just a matter of going for it and trying.
That is amazing. Like that's actually a really, really good like philosophy. That is awesome. You're
Well,
totally
thanks.
right though. You know what you need? You need one of those shows on. Remember the Sci-Fi Channel had that Face Off, and then they had another
Yeah.
one that was like Jim Henson Studio stuff. You need one
Yes.
for like effects and like monster effects and sculpting and stuff like that. You need one of those kind of shows. We need to talk to somebody
I
over at
would love
Sci-Fi.
it. Yeah, it's funny. Like a handful of the guys that were on Face Off were guys that I actually worked with in the industry. They were old friends of mine,
Mhm.
and a couple guys that still owed me money.
Hey, he owes me money.
Yeah, I hate to tell you how many guys in the industry still owe me money. That's the industry.
That's hilarious. Was it Glenn? Was it Glenn Hetrick? Was that the guy's name? He owes me money.
Mm,
That SOB?
yeah, yeah. No, he definitely wasn't one of the ones I worked with, but yeah, he was one of the main judges on the show.
Yeah, that's funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So I would say it's probably safe to assume that you pretty much have your dream job, or at least you've worked your dream job at some point in your career, right?
Yeah, I
Like
mean
as far as most
that's
people go, when they see like what you do, most people, I promise you, at one point or another, have watched a movie that you've done or you've worked on, and they're like, "That looks amazing. It's like I want to do that. That's my dream career." So, I think you're perfect for today's topic. So
cool.
basically, the other day, I was doing some sort of mindless, mundane things, just almost busy work, but stuff you got to do, right? And I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, there are about a million other things that I would rather be doing that actually be making me happy right now. But right, and most people think that at least 20 times a day. But
Sure.
then it got me thinking that that's kind of the trick, right? That's kind of the catch about having a job is, most people do mundane, boring stuff just so they can do what they actually want to do later or on the weekend or something. But there's something my parents always said. I think everybody's parents always told them this, and you kind of have to hear it at some point in your life. If you find a job if you find something you love doing, you'll never work a day in your life, right? And
Right.
we've all heard it, and it sounds
Yep,
pretty and it sounds
absolutely.
nice. But from somebody who works their dream job or has worked their dream job, I have to imagine you've probably never worked late nights or had stressful deadlines or anything like that. You probably have it on easy street since you're working your dream job, I'd imagine.
Nope, you couldn't be more wrong.
What?
And I think you know that.
Oh man, yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
And that's the funny thing is
of
like
course. Yeah.
the more of a dream job it is, the more work it actually is because it's probably other people's dream jobs too. Like it's highly competitive when you get into these really cool industries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is probably not at all what most people on the outside looking in are thinking it is, right? Like when you see these amazing movies and you go to these theme parks and you see all these awesome creations, you just assume that creating them must have been just as much fun as the final product that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always the case. It is a first off, like you just mentioned, it's an insanely competitive industry. And as huge as it is, it's actually kind of small. The entertainment industry, especially when it comes to the specific things that I did, like creature makeup effects, props, and
Mm-hmm.
then getting into the theme park industry as a sculptor, as an artist, it's really a small pool of people that are doing that kind of work. And when there's only so much of that work available and
Yeah.
everyone's fighting for it, I think you can imagine how competitive it can get. So yeah, for many reasons, it is a much tougher job and industry than you can imagine. I mean, really, I have to actually kind of separate the two out because working in the film industry was very different experience than I've had working in the theme park industry. And again, we can get into this as much as you want. I could talk all day on these subjects and stuff, and I'm happy to. I'm happy to just lay it all out and give you whatever dirt you want, and just and really tell it how it is. And at the same time, there is absolutely some amazing rewards from working in this field too, of course, as you can imagine. But one of the first things, I think one of the first things that people have to keep in mind, right, is think of your favorite thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever that hobby is, or, that art, or, maybe a musical instrument you play, or you paint pictures, whatever it is, whatever your favorite hobby is, even writing poetry, whatever it is, think of your favorite pastime. Now, imagine turning that into a job, right?
Right.
Where you have to do that all the time for clients or for your employer who is directing you to do this specific art or this specific music or this specific painting or poetry or whatever it is, right? That isn't necessarily your vision, it's their vision, right? Now, as an artist or whatever, you have to be able to know how to turn those skills off and on to be able to do your job,
Right.
of course. But when you are doing your, I guess, your passion, your favorite hobby all the time as a job, then when you do have free time,
You don't want to do that
guess
anymore.
what you don't want to be doing as much.
Exactly.
And that is the time that you used to cherish the most, because you could do that hobby and do it under your terms and really enjoy it, right? So all of this to say, yes, it's amazing to be, for me personally, it's amazing to be sculpting all day long and creating these awesome creations for a company like Disney. But at the end of the day, those are not my visions. They're not my creations. Even if I'm sculpting them,
Right.
I'm sculpting what they're telling me to do. For instance, I love monsters.
Right.
I love Halloween. I
Mhm.
love special effects. That was my passion. That's kind of the direction I was going early on. And as you can imagine, at Disney, I don't sculpt monsters all that often, right? So if I want to do that kind of work, that I have to do on my own, on my free time. And I do. And that's part of why Grimwood Hollow even exists. Grimwood Hollow is where I get my fix, where I'm able to do my hobby, create my monsters, do all that stuff that I love. But as you can imagine, to be an artist, 10 hours a day, every single day, 5 days a week, sculpting, and then to come home and continue doing that kind of work is it's tough. It can be an overload. It can be a lot. And it's really hard to then want to make time to do your own art when you're doing that all day long as a job. And for me, I'm an artist. I mean, that's what I love. That's my passion. So I can't just turn that off. Like, to feel whole and to feel like I'm being true to myself, I still have to always be creating my own creations.
Oh, totally.
And that's how you feel fulfilled as an artist, is doing your own art and enjoying it. And so I always have to have side projects going on other than what my job is at Disney, because that's me getting to do my true art and what I love and my true passion. So, with anything, finding that kind of work-life balance and still being able to be able to do my my craft as a job, but also as my side hobby, is tough. It's really tough sometimes to find that balance and to have the drive and the time to even do it still as a hobby and stuff. But I always got to have some crazy creations going on the side.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you actually just listed 3 things I didn't even have on my list. So the original title of this video was The 9 Things They Don't Tell You About, having and maintaining a dream job. And you just mentioned 3 more that I didn't even have on there, which is, 1, burnout. 2, it's no longer fun anymore if you're doing it for a job.
Right.
And then, and then 3. What was the last thing you just said, number 3?
Basically the work-life balance.
The work-life balance. Yeah, work-life balance. You think it's going to be a dream job. Oh, hang on. We have our live studio audience. My son has to come and say hi.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Locke,
How's it going?
This is Lachlan. This is my son.
Zach, we can put that on
Locke,
video.
this is Steve, and this is Catherine.
And this is Kat.
Oh, and there's a cat over there somewhere. And
Hey,
there's
you guys.
you made
I
it.
think I've seen you before on this screen.
Yeah, they like to make an
And
appearance.
this is my giant slinky.
Oh, cool.
Cool slinky. Did you get that at school? Oh.
No.
Careful! And my daughter's terrorizing the
Actually got
cat.
it somewhere.
That's hello.
We actually have.
That's a big cat.
It's a combination of a big cat and a small girl.
Oh, okay. It looks huge on this screen.
We're hobbits over here. We're little.
And
Very cute.
and this is my spider paper.
Oh yeah, he loves
Whoa,
spiders.
cool. I
Any
love
kind
it.
of arachnids. What's your favorite arachnid, Block? Hey, that's not a toy.
It's a fire starter.
It's he found my lighter.
Oh, oops.
I didn't know what it was.
It's okay. No.
What's your favorite spider?
What's your favorite arachnid?
Amly pidgeot or a vinegaroon. They look almost.
Ooh,
They look.
I love vinegaroons. Those are crazy looking.
They look.
They are.
They look almost the same, but the vinegaroon has like a tail, like thing.
Like a whip.
Yeah, like.
on the
Yeah.
end. It's pretty cool. The Ambly Pidgeot looks pretty much the same, but does not.
Yeah.
All right.
Plus.
I've used pictures of spiders many times as reference for designing creatures and monsters for movies and stuff. I love spiders.
And-
Yeah, no
yeah,
kidding.
same. And Amly pidgeots and vinegaroons use their front two legs as like antenna.
They use them. like-
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so they can see in the dark.
Man. I'm learning all kinds of stuff. This is great.
Yeah, he's been sleeping a long time.
I knew spiders since I was 6.
Longer than that. You've always
Yeah.
loved them. All right.
So when I was your age, I was obsessed with sharks, and I started studying sharks at I think when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was going to these oceanography classes for summer classes and stuff, and I'm a total shark nerd. Like, I love sharks.
That's awesome. What was your favorite shark?
My favorite shark is I love mako sharks. I think mako
Oh,
sharks
okay.
are just so cool looking. I mean, I've got a lot of favorites. Oceanic white tips are very cool. I mean, who doesn't love great whites and
Of course. I thought you were
bull
going to say hammerhead.
sharks?
Yeah.
Hammerheads. I love hammerheads. They're very unique and cool looking. Have you ever seen a wabagon?
My wife literally just talked about wabagongs. That used to be his favorite shark. He used to love talking about wabagongs.
They are crazy looking
Yeah,
sharks.
they
So
are.
cool. Yeah,
We watch a lot of nature documentaries here.
And,
that's awesome.
Did you know that a type of squirrel's belly can glow in the dark?
Yeah,
A
there's a
squirrel's belly? Is that what I heard?
type
Yeah.
of squirrel. Its belly will glow in the dark. It
Yeah.
fluoresces.
That's called a radioactive squirrel, and you need to stay away from it.
We saw them on our last trip to Chernobyl.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, right.
None. You don't know your math.
Okay,
Dad.
here, Locke.
You don't know what 20 plus 10 is.
It's never boring.
Oh yeah, and Dad doesn't even know what 100 and plus infinity is.
I don't know what 100 plus infinity is.
That's
It's
even-
still infinity.
It's infinity.
He knows math.
All right,
Okay.
Wes. I think we need to start writing a script for Chernobyl squirrels.
Yeah, you can do the effects for that one.
I'm on it.
It's never
Oh,
boring
man.
around here.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, you mentioned 3 things that weren't even on my list. So I'm gonna run through these lists, and if you have any if you have any dirt that you can share, feel free. But don't get yourself in trouble. That's all I ask.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, let's do it. I'm all about it.
And a lot of these come from my experiences getting into dream careers, that what I thought was going to be a dream career, and eventually you move into something else because you're like, there's a lot they didn't tell me about this stuff. So first is
Yeah.
horrible bosses, and this isn't true with just your dream job, but it can be true any place. Horrible bosses.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no
Don't
no
get yourself in
shortage-
trouble.
no shortage of those anywhere. Well, I'll speak to mostly the effects industry because I've been out of that for years and whatever. But here's a story just to illustrate what some of the bosses were like that I had to deal with in the effects industry. Now the effects industry is a very unique scene.
Yeah, I believe it.
A lot of crazy creative people, but also a lot of crazy egos.
Ooh,
And it's the entertainment industry, so you just got craziness across the board. But I had a boss once. I worked at this job. This was when I was doing special effects work for movies for a very short period of time, because I knew that my days were numbered there before something really bad was going to happen to me.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
Now when I got in there, I thankfully was doing a really good job. This boss was really happy with my work and my performance and never had an issue. But the effects industry, it's not an exact science, man. The work we do, the art that we do, the chemicals we work with, nothing's an exact science. A lot of stuff is trial and error. Even when you get on set with it, things don't always work out. So anyway, there's oftentimes things go wrong in a shop, I mean, you could say that with anything in life, right? Things don't always work out perfect, and people make mistakes. There's accidents. There's a million factors that can contribute to things not going perfectly when you're working on special effects stuff. And I had to see time after time in this shop of this boss that would come out and just explode on people and just be so unbelievably like verbally abusive. But here's to like illustrate how this person was. This is my boss. They would come out and they would start throwing paint. He would start throwing paint cans all over the shop. This guy was 6'5".
Oh wow.
Probably 250 pounds, just built like a tank. So very intimidating.
He's already intimidating, yeah.
Yeah, just in appearance, right? Would come flying out of his office, literally with his fist punching holes through the drywall, screaming and yelling at cussing at everybody, and then just ripping everyone a new one. And then, no joke, 5 minutes later, handing out squirt guns and telling everybody, everyone out to the parking lot. We're going to have a squirt gun battle. Let's go. Woo. And you're like, literally, your head is spinning. Your tail is between your legs. You're shaking in fear because this guy just like basically tore everyone's head off. And now he wants to have a squirt gun battle with you out in the parking lot. It was absolute insanity. And that's one tiny little story just to kind of illustrate how nutty it can be. But I've had all kinds of different bosses in this industry. Really, like some that were great, some that were good people for sure, but a lot of it's just and I think I told you this, Wes. I've never gotten way into this, with you, I think on past shows, but we talked a little bit about it. But the Hollywood industry, the Hollywood scene, just wasn't for me. I don't feel like I was built for it. I was able to survive in it. I think one of the most important characteristics in surviving in the entertainment industry is adaptability, being able to adapt to any situation and make it work and overcome it. And I was confident in my work, and I was adaptable, and I was able to I was always really friendly with people and work well with others, but at the same time, I really didn't care for a lot of the situations that I ended up in and a lot of the people that I had to work around. There's just a lot of really disgusting, dirty things in the entertainment industry, and it doesn't matter. It's from the top to the bottom too. Whether you're talking about A-list stars in the movie industry, all the way down to worker bees, that are running around the set doing all the work, or guys doing effects stuff. There's, and again, I'm sure you can say this about all industries, but but there's massive egos. There's a lot of drugs sometimes. There's all kinds of different dirty things going on that I personally witnessed, and a lot of backstabbing that happened.
Right.
I was a victim of a lot of that at times, where people just backstab you and take advantage of you, and just a lot of things that were just terrible. And that's not the kind of person I am. I wanted to just be able to do my work with integrity, be a good person, and let my work speak for itself. And in this industry, I noticed that a lot of the times it was the people who were the loudest, most obnoxious people with the biggest egos, and they didn't even have great work to back it up. They just had the super loud, dominant personalities, and were very kind of abusive and controlling. And those are the ones that were getting elevated and noticed and had the spotlight on them. And a lot of people who just really wanted to be good people and do good work kind of just get, brushed to the side, and it was an eye opener, and again, that wasn't every situation, but there was a lot of that going on. And just the more and more I was around it, the less and less I was, let's say, enchanted by the movie industry.
Right.
When I was young and first got into it, it was like I was completely starstruck by working in effects shops and being around all this stuff. But the more I worked in it, and the more I realized sort of like the true nature of how it all worked and a lot of the people involved, it just was less and less glamorous every day. And it wasn't for me. It was, I just wanted to be an artist. I didn't even, honestly, and I think I told you this, I didn't even care if I was doing effects for movies. I didn't care if I was working on theme parks. I didn't care if I was working on a stage play or what it was. I just wanted to make a living as an artist and doing the art that I love to do. That's really what it came down to for me. It wasn't about the status of working on movies, which that's what it is for a lot of these people. Even more than the art itself, they want to be able to just say, hey, I worked on these movies, and I'm part of this crazy thing that's the most important thing in the world. We're making movies, and we're saving the world by making. It's like, shut up! You're making movies. Like,
right.
You're not saving lives, you guys. Like, get over it. It's our job is no more important than anyone else's. In fact, it's less important than most jobs out there in this world. We're again fortunate to be able to do the art that we love to do, and try to make a living doing it. But again, these God complexes, I just don't understand it, and I don't agree with it.
Yeah. Wow. That was an amazing. So the original number one, they don't tell you about your dream job is horrible bosses, but you extended that to working with people with massive egos, which those people, unfortunately, they tend to float to the top, or at least the upper middle level. So they end up being somebody's boss, which is horrible. But you're right. That's a huge part of, and not just your industry. That's every industry. I mean, I could tell you all kinds of very, very, very similar stories.
I still see that all the time, even where I'm working now. It's like, there's always going to be some of that, right? It's unfortunately this world, this is just my opinion, so, don't judge me, but I feel like the world often sees, loud, dominant people as, with these strong personalities as something that is, like, I don't even know how to say it, but like they're like, it's almost like a safety thing, or like they know, they think that these people know what they're talking about and are more qualified because they have such this loud, dominant personality. And I mean, it's kind of a obnoxious thing to see, because a lot of these people, again, they just they didn't necessarily earn their place by their experience and their work. They got to their position more by kind of bullying their way to these positions and stuff. And I've seen that happen a lot, and it's disgusting, because, and then eventually a lot of times you have to then take orders and direction from these people who shouldn't even be in that role anyway, and don't
Right.
even know how to direct people. They don't even know the first thing about really the work and the business we're doing. They're just they got promoted into these roles, and now we've got these people that are running the show and don't even know how to direct all the people below them. And luckily, we all know our work. We all know what to do. We can all self-manage and do our own work. So whether or not the captain of the ship knows how to steer it, we still know how to hoist the sails and do everything we need to do. So you just, again, you learn to adapt, and you learn to manage, and you learn to just try to be confident about who you are. Keep that little bit of a thick skin that you got to keep on at times when you're dealing with some of these people in this industry. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it really, I think everything I'm going to say could really be applied across the board to probably any industry anywhere. I haven't worked in any other industry. I started, like I said, when I was 15 years old, just thrust right into the effects industry and the entertainment industry. And so that's all I've really been exposed to. But I know, just, from friends and from family and from other people, we'll end up having like the same arguments and the same conversations, because we're all dealing with like the same types of things. It's just a different industry, different job, but same challenges.
Yeah, no, you're totally right though. You got to keep that thick skin, because you can deal with people with those egos. So number 2 was horrible bosses, and we're going to change that to dealing with other people's egos. Number 2 is the job's not quite what you signed up for. A lot of times you get this idea of like a dream job, and you're like, oh, I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to be, doing this over here and working with these people. And you get there, and it's very, very different in most cases.
Yeah. Here is, and this is no joke. When you think of the effects industry, you personally, Wes, when you think of the effects industry and you think of like, I don't know, these effect shops and stuff that I've worked at, even just like the environment in the shop itself, like what pops into your mind? What do you think of? Like when you think of these shops?
I think of like, well, you and I were talking about it before the show a little bit. The Sci-Fi Channel show Face Off. I think of this really cool big warehouse with all this great equipment and great, stuff to make these awesome props, and they have everything they need. And there's a bit of a tight deadline, but they're doing what they love, so they're just doing the magic and making it happen. Yeah,
so that's probably what 99% of the people believe the effects industry is
not
like. It. And again, we have there's been documentaries and shows about special effects. Like, of course, people, if you really are familiar with the effects industry, most people know of like Stan Winston and Rick Baker and some of these effects legends and stuff. And of course, their shops much closer to what you just described and what most people would see like on Face Off and stuff. Now I'll tell you, 90% of the shops I worked at were garages in people's houses in Van Nuys and Reseda.
That's awesome.
And we would be working, I'm not kidding you, in these little tiny garage shops. and we would be working anywhere from 16 to 20-hour days.
Oof.
7 days a week.
Wow.
And often all through the summer, when it's 108 degrees out here, and we're working in garage shops with zero air conditioning, and we're doing fiberglass work and resin work. And so you're in a respirator, and you are literally, I mean, we were dying working on so many of these movies. It was probably the most unglamorous thing you could ever think of. When I was working on Men in Black, and a lot of the big movies that I worked on was with my buddy Rick, and he had his own little private prop shop in his garage, but he was always doing A-list movies. And I was his guy. I was like his main guy, his shop foreman. I was his main sculptor, his main fabricator. And I was on like tons of movies with him all through the 90s and stuff. And I worked at a lot of other shops too. But his shop was a garage. And there were times that it got well over 100, 110 and higher. And what I would do is I would get there in the morning and I would jump in his swimming pool with all my clothes on. This is no joke. I would saturate myself and my clothes, and then I would stand in front of a fan while I was working until I dried, which you were dry in about 15 minutes, and then I'd jump back in the swimming pool again with my clothes on just to cool off. And that's probably the only reason I didn't die in his shop. And just to tell you another quick story about that, like this crazy garage shop that I was working in. There was one day that, oh my gosh, it was one of the hottest days I can remember. This was out in Reseda. His garage was up against an alley, a back alley. So it's basically all asphalt right out in front. And I'm working out there just dying in the heat. And he was sitting at a bench in his garage shop, and he stepped away from the bench just for a second, and all we heard was this massive explosion. Like,
oh, wow.
Just boom. And we all ran over. Right where he was sitting was a spray paint can, an aerosol spray paint can, and it was sitting on one of the drawers of his Kennedy toolbox.
Okay.
And it exploded so huge that the paint can stuck in the ceiling.
Oh, jeez.
And it literally bent the Kennedy drawer down. That's how powerful the explosion was. And he was literally sitting right there 2 seconds before that exploded.
Oh, man.
And so we read the spray paint cans, all the other spray paint cans, and they literally say, do not exceed 117 degrees Fahrenheit.
No.
Or no, I'm sorry. It says do not exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was 117 in his shop. And so those are just some of the conditions that I've worked in. And I'm not kidding you. That was 90% of the special effects jobs I did were all at little tiny shops like that, peppered around the valley here in Southern California in an area called the San Fernando Valley. And it literally is a valley in between a couple mountain ranges. And the heat just settles in the valley like an oven. And so you are just cooking in these little tiny shops doing this glamorous special effects job.
Right. Yeah.
and sweating your butt off. And doing horrible. I mean, if you've ever worked with fiberglass, it's one of the nastiest things. And we used to do a lot of fiberglass work and working with chemicals and other things. And so you're getting covered in foam dust and plaster and chemicals and having to wear a respirator. And it is not a very friendly, glamorous job.
Yikes. Holy moly. Yeah, I haven't been there yet, but so you're saying it's safe to say that is not what most people would expect when they get into that dream job.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of aspects of it. Like here's just a couple other things you expect too that a lot of people don't realize. When you work in the effects industry, also probably 90% of your jobs are going to be under the table, and they're not going to be through, like, it's not going to be a legit thing, because what they do is all this effects work it's so hit and miss. You never know when your next job is coming. And these shops, what they'll do is the shops will have a really small permanent crew, if any. And then when a big job hits, they just crew up. They hire all these people on, like myself or whoever, and you jump in this shop and you work for a couple weeks or a couple months on this movie gig. And they most of the time just pay you under the table. Not all of them. Some of them are legit jobs, but most of them are under the table. And then you're laid off again. And then you're sitting there waiting around again, wondering when the next job is going to happen. And, well, I shouldn't say waiting around. I spent the majority of my time. You got to keep in mind, back when I was doing this too, there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no email, there was none of that. So what I was doing was constantly making resumes, mailing resumes out to every single effects shop. I was knocking on the doors.
Mailing the resumes, not email wasn't a thing. You had to mail the resumes.
Literally mail them. Yeah. So I'd have to print them out, photocopy them, stick them in the mail, and send them out to these effect shops, or I'd go around and knock on their doors and stuff. So you're hustling. You are literally hustling 24/7 just to try to stay working in the effects industry, because you never know which shop is going to be busy at what time. And even if you make a decent amount of money, which was very rare, but even if you did make a decent amount of money, you never knew if that money was going to have to last you 6 weeks or
Right.
6 months. And sometimes it was literally months before the next big effects shop or the next big effects gig popped up and stuff. So it's a very uncertain, unstable career. It's a very unstable career. I have friends who are literally legends. They're legends in the effects industry. These are guys that have worked on tons of our favorite horror movies and big movies back in the day. They actually are responsible for training and giving the careers to a lot of the big effects guys that are in the industry now. I mean, these guys are effects legends, and they can't find work. They can't keep jobs. These are top guys in the industry that are still scraping to get by and scraping to make a living. And so that's another thing to really think about in this industry. Is it's very again, it's a small amount of work that's available out there, and a larger pool of people all the time now, because there's still a lot of new people that want to get into this. And so it's really hard. And anyway, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it is not exactly probably the job that you think it is going into it, or that you're hoping it is going into it,
Yeah, jeez. Holy moly. No, your stories are next level, man. All right. So that was number 2. Number 2 was not necessarily what we signed up for. Number 3, and feel free to elaborate on this, or you can skip, because it is more work than you were expecting and less pay than you were expecting, which is true with a lot of dream jobs.
That's both like crazy. Yeah, it's way more work than I could have ever dreamed. Like, working in the effects industry, I worked myself into the ground, and I'll tell you the truth, I have a lot of health issues these days now because of how hard I pushed myself.
Yeah.
And how hard the shops that we worked at, how hard they pushed you to work back in those days. I mean, I literally destroyed my body and my health in a lot of ways because of how hard I had to work, and physically pushing myself way beyond my limits, because I wanted that work so bad. I wanted to make that happen so bad. Like you said, I mean, that was my dream job. It was my passion. It's what I wanted to do ever since I was a tiny kid. And I suddenly ended up in this industry, and I really wanted it to work out. There's still days, many days, where I sit around and think about, oh my gosh, did I make the right choice? I really miss making creatures and monsters and props for movies. But then I take a second and really think about what it was like, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I got out of that industry. Not to mention, I couldn't even go back to it now if I wanted to. I physically could not do that job anymore. Like, my body couldn't handle it. I really couldn't handle it now. I have too many issues in my joints and body parts. Everything's broken. So
getting old sucks, man.
Yeah, because it really is. It's it was when you worked a 10-hour day in the effects industry, we used to joke that you're working a part-time job.
Yeah.
Like, literally, because the majority of our jobs were 16 to 20-hour days. It really was. There were times where I would just go sleep in my car for a few hours and then go right back at it, because there was no point in driving home, and going to bed and just getting up an hour later and coming back. It was ridiculous, and so yeah, it was tough. And the work, well, the industry's changed a lot, as you know. The 99% of the effects work these days is all digital now. It's all done with computers and CG. But practical effects work is really, really demanding work. It's really tough. Yeah. And when I was in the industry, it was almost all practical effects stuff. So, when you're creating a giant monster, I'm trying to think of okay, I was working on this movie, Deep Star 6, which was an underwater like sci-fi movie, and
Uh-huh.
it had this underwater monster that was literally, the monster we built was 26 feet long,
Wow.
and it was like an 8-foot girth on this thing, and it was all like huge a huge metal armature all welded up with hydraulics, and all the pieces of the monster were all giant fiberglass shells and everything.
Mhm.
And just think about just manhandling all that, just
Right.
sculpting all the parts, molding all the parts out of fiberglass, casting them out of fiberglass, dealing with the armature, moving everything around, puppeteering it and animating it. And I mean, you're talking like months and months and months of just grueling physical work all day and night, and it is so demanding. There's guys that I talk to now, that were back in the industry when I was in it, the effects industry, and even before my time. And we always say it is, and this is a known thing. They say it's a young person's career or field of work. It's
right.
Working in the effects industry, doing creatures, monsters, makeup effects, stuff like that. That is a young person's job. It is so tough if you are not physically capable of being able to handle the hours and the physical work. And then you go on set. So think about this too. Think about all the effects work is what's called pre-production work, right? You have to have all this stuff done before they even start shooting, right? So when they start shooting the film, you show up on set with the finished props or the finished monsters or makeup effects, right? So we have to be starting to work on movies months and months in advance, sometimes up to a year in advance before the film production even kicks in, right? So here we are, for 6 months, just killing ourselves, kicking our butts on this movie. And now we have to go on set. And if anybody out there knows what it's like being on set, you are literally sitting around on set for sometimes 24 hours or more, even just waiting for your shot to happen. And then you got to kick into gear and be, you got to be on it, and you got to be ready to go to shoot your scenes and, do your makeup effects, do your puppeteer, your creatures, bring your props in. And you're already completely spent from the months of work you did, and now you're just a zombie on these movie sets. And I can't even tell you how bad that was at times, just being on a movie set. And that's another thing. People probably think that would be the funnest part. You get to watch how a movie's made, and you get to be around all these celebrities and stars and all that. It is a nightmare most of the time.
Right.
It really is. There's almost nothing glamorous about being on movie sets.
Oh man. Well, I've heard some of your celebrity stories, and I have a feeling some of the stories I've heard are some of the more tame stories that you have. So you don't have to get into it now, but I do not envy some of the things you had to go through.
It's one of those things, though. It's kind of funny, like, and I think a lot of people probably feel this way about a lot of things in life. When you go through something crazy, right? You wouldn't necessarily want to go back in time and do it all over again, but at the same time, you're glad you went through it because it was such a crazy experience, and now you can look back on it and have these fun stories and these crazy stories, and you survived it. It's just like, it's almost like, oh my God, I survived this, and now I have these crazy stories, and that part of it really is fun. Like, again, I wouldn't trade any of that for the world. I am so glad I got to do those things. I really do feel so fortunate to have been able to work on a lot of those projects, and there really is a great reward involved in some levels with it. Was it exactly how I thought it was going to be? No way in hell. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. I couldn't even go back and do that again, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I survived.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, some of the things that you've done is amazing. So, but we actually already hit on my next point, which was crazy hours. Like, people don't understand how much more work you'll be doing than you realize. So the next one is unrealistic demands. So a lot of dream jobs, people don't realize, again, they're dream jobs for a lot of other people out there also. So it's competitive and the bosses know it. So there are going to be some demands that are just not realistic, but you have to somehow live up to these things.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to tell you the truth, the majority, again, like the majority of the films I worked on, you have such a tight schedule that I feel like the majority of them felt like they were unrealistic demands. And we often got into a lot of situations because of that, a lot of challenges trying to pull off the work we were supposed to pull off and had to pull off by certain deadlines. That's another thing about the entertainment industry is they want everything now, and they don't want to give you a lot of time to do it or a lot of money to do it. And so that's definitely a massive challenge too, is they have these insanely unrealistic expectations about what they should get and in what time frame and for how much money. And then there's the reality of it, and we try to tell them, hey, okay, we get that's what you want, but this is the reality. With this time frame, with this schedule, we're only going to be able to pull off this much. And there's, again, some of it is just completely out of our control too. There's materials that we work with that take so long to dry,
right?
Or
just physically, you can't. It can't be done.
Absolutely. Physically, it can't be done. Chemicals take a certain amount of time to set up. Things need to dry. Other things need to be, foam latex needs to be cooked in an oven for 6 hours. There's so many things that just require time. And often they don't want to hear that. They just want to be like, I don't care what your excuses are. You just got to make sure it's on set when we're ready to film.
Right.
And so that can be a challenging thing too. Like just being able to work through that, to be able to communicate those things and be able to kind of juggle all that, to be able to tell these people, hey,
right, no doubt,
this is what we're going to be able to pull off. And yeah, we'd love to do so much more than that, but the reality of it is we're only going to be able to do this much. If you give us more time, and sometimes even more money can help because you get more people involved. But it's not even always about that. It's not even always about more money and more people. It literally is just a time thing, a schedule thing, where there isn't enough time to physically pull off some of these projects.
Right. I'm only in marketing. And, there have been a lot of times when a client would say, I need this type of thing done. Go make it happen. They don't know how it works or why it works. And I've occasionally had to go back and be like, that's actually not how any of this works. That's actually not even a thing that exists. So, but then they're like, it doesn't matter. This is what we need. So then I actually have to go back and I've had to invent strategies and executions and custom, codes and models of deployment for these different campaigns that just didn't exist. And to my knowledge, some of them still don't, aside from what I did. I assume you have the same thing where you literally have to invent new things just to make certain things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the fact that you brought that up is awesome, because it's actually, that is one of the kind of cool things in a way of being forced into those situations where you are dealing with these constraints, schedule constraints and budget constraints. And you're working at the 11th hour trying to finish something. Sometimes that's when the best work happens and where we're the most innovative too. We've come up with some really cool things on the spot to overcome the constraints of a project, where normally this is how we would do it and we'd like to do it that way, but we don't have that time. So how are we going to pull this off? And next thing you know, just like you mentioned, you have to literally invent a new process or a new way of doing it. And sometimes amazing things come out of those moments. And now you're like, oh my gosh, this worked. And this new technique we can now apply across, on future projects. And we know it's going to be really awesome. I mean, that kind of stuff happens all the time, even where I'm working now at Disney, where we constantly have new challenges there, new projects. every single project we do at Disney is a unique project. We don't, everything we're doing is completely original. It's not a cookie cutter thing where we just apply the same techniques to every single project that we do. And sometimes we have to constantly reinvent ourselves. And that's where it's kind of cool when you have a lot of creative people and a collaborative team. You start throwing these different ideas out, and like you said, just reinventing the process. And sometimes amazing stuff comes out of that, and you sort of rewrite the entire process, and the entire pipeline can change of how we do our work, and for the better often. So sometimes it really does force you into a situation that has a really positive outcome.
Yeah, totally. That's actually one of the things that I love about, working in whatever industry I happen to be in at the time, is when I'm able to do that, just invent a process or a way of doing things. So that was unrealistic demands. The next one is one that everybody out there has felt. Everybody. No appreciation or lack of appreciation. How many times have you been on a set or worked on a job and like you poured your life into this thing and they're like, all right, that's fine. And you're like, ah!
Yeah, I mean, gosh, like the majority of the projects,
Right.
like
Yeah.
the majority of it's like every industry. The people at the top are only as good as the people below them who are doing all the work, right? And we're all the ones that are making those people look good. We're the ones creating everything and doing all the hard work and stuff. And they're the ones that are sitting in the spotlight, getting the pats on the back and getting all the promotions and getting all the awards. And, they're the ones that are on the documentaries being interviewed about all the amazing stuff. But we all know we're the ones that did the hard work and created it, and that's, that's just part of it. Like I think, again, every job out there, every industry out there, it's like we're the ones busting our butt and doing all the hard work, but it's rare that we actually get the acknowledgement for it. There's been times for sure where I've gotten some great feedback and acknowledgement for the things I've done and accomplished and stuff. But most of the time, you're just out there busting your butt, making someone else look good.
Right. Yeah. Honestly. And I know the old adage of, a job well done is reward enough. But like, sometimes your ego is a little like, I don't know. Maybe a thumbs up would be nice once in a while. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, there are some projects I worked on that were 100% me, and me going way above and beyond than most people would ever go for a project, where I really was like so unbelievably proud of what I accomplished and what I created. And then literally like the next day, no one even remembers who did it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like that's where, like literally the next day you see someone being interviewed and they're literally taking credit for all the work you just did. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, it's just like, it can be really frustrating. And that, oh my God, that happens all the time in this industry. And again, you just gotta be okay with it. You gotta know your place. And I think it has a lot to do with who you are as a person and having a healthy attitude toward it. Because like for me personally, again, and I've always been this way. And there's probably, as I've worked on some crazy high profile projects, like insane movies and stuff for Disney, like really high profile stuff in the entertainment industry. As far as the entertainment industry goes, I worked on some of the biggest stuff that's out there. And at the same time, the majority of everyone in the world has zero clue who I am. Like, and why would they? Because I'm not the guy that's going to be in the spotlight and talking about this and getting the the acknowledgement for it
Mhm.
and stuff. And I've actually been fine with that. I'm okay with that. In fact, I've never been a in the spotlight kind of person. I really don't care about that stuff.
Mhm.
That is not why I do what I do. I do what I do because I love the art. Like
Right.
I'm passionate about creating this stuff. And for me, what I always what the reason I do it and the reward for me has always been the fact that my art is out there entertaining people. And
Yeah.
that is why I do it, knowing that my art is going out somewhere, whether it's in a movie or whether
Mhm.
it's in a theme park, or even if it's just a Halloween display in our front yard. I know that my art is out there and bringing smiles to people, and they're enjoying it, and it's doing something positive for them in their life. And that's my reward, and that's what I love. I don't need an award for it. I don't need
Mhm.
a spotlight on me. I don't need a pat on the back. I don't need to be in a documentary talking about all this crazy stuff I did. I don't even have, as you know, I don't have like a big website with all of my work on there. Even on my channel, on my
Yeah.
YouTube channel, I think if most people went on my YouTube channel and were watching videos, they wouldn't even have a clue what I do for a living. I think I only have a couple videos on there where I even show some of the movie work I did or
Mhm.
even talk about it. Because again, I don't know. That's not the most important thing to me. It's not getting the acknowledgement. It's knowing that your work is out there and doing something positive for the world. That's all.
Yeah.
So that's what's important to me. But I mean, I love talking about this stuff. I have like, but that's because I'm a nerd about it. That's because I
Yeah.
geek out on this stuff and I'm passionate about it. It's not about like, hey, look at me, look how special I am because I worked on movies. It's not that. It's hey, let's talk about monsters because I love monsters and
Right.
I'm a total dork about it and I want to talk to you about it. And if you're excited about it, let's nerd out together. And that's why I get excited about it. And I end up talking your ear off about it because it's my passion. I really love it.
Yeah, and that is super super healthy. Like that is like the most healthy thing I've heard in a long time. Is like you need to. I love the way you said you nerd out about it because I say that all the time. Like
Yeah.
I'll be in a meeting with like very high level executives, and they're like,
Yeah.
we're going through this stuff, and somebody bring up a subject of deliverability algorithms, and my mind will just explode, and I'm like, my ears perk up like a cat who just heard a mouse. I'm like, all right,
Right.
let's nerd out. You want to talk about some stuff? So, but you gotta love what you do. You can't get into a dream
Yeah.
job and expect that somebody's gonna pat you on the back every 5 minutes. You got to be there because
Right.
you love doing what you do.
That's it. That's absolutely it. Yeah. I mean, again, is it a job? Of course it is. Is there the same challenges and everything else and stuff we got to deal with that everyone else deals with? Absolutely. But it definitely makes it easier
Yeah.
to put in your 10 hours every day knowing that you're at least doing what you love, getting to create
Hmm.
art and getting to utilize your skills and your talents and your passion to make a living,
Hmm.
and that is super rewarding and super awesome. Like, um, so if I could custom build my dream job,
Okay.
would it be exactly what I'm doing right now? Probably not. Because again, I'm a horror nerd. I love monsters. I love Halloween. I love that stuff. But at the same time, I am insanely grateful, thankful, and blessed for where I'm at. I
Hmm.
know how fortunate I am to have made it to where I've gotten to in my career and to be working at a place, like Disney where I'm working, and to be able to be a sculptor and make a living doing that. There are not many places in this world
Hmm.
where a sculptor can, survive and make a living doing that and doing the kind of stuff that I'm doing. So yeah, I mean, I'm so blessed to be able to do that. I mean, again, would I rather be sculpting monsters? Heck yeah.
Right.
But I do feel like I made the right choice in like 96, I think is when I switched over to the theme park industry because all the effects work had gone digital, and there was less and less practical effects work out there. And it was really purely, well, I shouldn't say purely. It was two things, what I already mentioned. One, it was about survival, finding a job that had some job security and longevity, where I knew I could have a paycheck to depend on, right? And I didn't have that in the effects industry. It was, like I said, the effects industry was so unstable. You never knew when you were going to have a job. So yeah, so one reason I switched to the theme park industry was for that job stability, and the other reason, again, was because I just did not care for the Hollywood scene and just the insanity of the movie industry. I did not care for that scene at all.
Well, you're just too good a person for some of those some of those scenes.
You know, it's funny. I often have joked with my parents about that, and I'm just like, I wish you would have raised me as way more of an a-hole, because
raised me to be a douchebag.
Yeah, because if I was a bigger d-bag, I probably would have even been way more successful in this industry and didn't have to fight so hard for my jobs. But but then I'd have to live with myself being that kind of a person. So
it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
But thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh man. So no, that was actually a super healthy point. And I should have saved that for the last one, because that would be a really great high point to end on. We still have two more points here. The next one is negative atmosphere. So a lot of dream jobs, and I've run and worked at some places that earlier on in my life I would have considered these places to be a dream job. And then I get there, and you get people who are competitive, or they have an ego, or people in charge who just don't appreciate the amount of work that goes into something you're working on. And the atmosphere is just down. And even though it's a dream job, you're just not happy there. And ultimately people leave, but these places end up being sort of meat grinders in the end. So you know, you mentioned having a thick skin, which is good, but also I imagine people in your industry, you know, just knowing you, I have to imagine other people in your industry also are just trying their hardest just to be a good person and uplifting and keeping the atmosphere as light as possible. Just you know, because it has this nonstop, you know, 20-hour day work, you know, schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there were more people doing that. I feel like there's kind of more people on the other end of the spectrum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really, because it really is such a competitive industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a dirty industry, and it's unfortunate, because I think it comes out of a lot of people, you know, who just, well, it's probably a number of different things, but I think people who maybe lack confidence, self-confidence, people who maybe don't have the experience or even the talent that other people have, get very threatened by other artists in the industry. And that's where it gets really ugly in my scene, in you know, working in the movie industry and working at Disney. I've come across this many times where people are just, I'm going to say artists are just so threatened by other artists because they're worried you're going to take their spot, or you're going to take their work. And I'll tell you what, when I first started in the industry, again, I was a kid, and I learned from one of the greatest mold makers in the effects industry. And I learned a lot of great stuff from this guy. I worked with him about 3.5 years before I went out into the crazy sea of effect shops, and I started doing what was called shop hopping, where I bounced around all these different effect shops. Now, I was only 18 years old, and I had already had 3.5 years of experience in the effects industry and learned a lot of stuff. And so I showed up at these effect shops, and you can imagine all these older guys in there just looking at me like, who is this idiot kid? And I had kind of the same haircut, you know, so I'm this little punk kid, and nobody had respect for me. They just thought I was some idiot. And it wasn't until I really, you know, was able to prove myself and show what I could do that I would gain respect from them. But what often happened was I would get in there and show off what I can do. And instantly all these people were now threatened by me, because now, oh my God, who's this new kid who's come in here now, and he's like showing us up with his work, you know, and stuff. So then that's where all the backstabbing comes in, and people trying to, like, you know, step on other people's heads, or create a bad reputation for you to get you fired, so that then they can, you know, keep their jobs. And it gets so competitive and ugly, and that's just not my nature. I'm not a confrontational person. I don't want to have to compete with people. Again, I just wanted to do the best I could do and do my best work, and let it speak for itself. And if it got me somewhere, great. But I didn't want to go in there and have to tear other people apart just to get where I was going to get to. And so here, I'll give you a quick little story to perfectly, I think, illustrate and answer your point there about being in an environment that can be, I don't remember exactly what your point was, but like a hostile environment, or kind of a tough,
just a negative atmosphere.
Yeah, negative atmosphere and stuff. So one of the second effect shops I ever worked at was a very well-known effect shop. It was one of the effect shops that probably looked closer to Face Off.
Okay.
So it was a successful effect shop. A lot of guys were working there. We were on a big movie, and we had to do, oh my gosh, I want to say it was like 60 different, almost like caveman makeup jobs on these actors. So like full prosthetics of all these like caveman characters, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was brought in as a sculptor and a mold maker. I was only, I think, 18 at the time, and I was just this skinny little kid, and nobody knew me, and so I'm the new guy in the shop. And the owner of the shop came up, and he instructed, there was a whole team of us. Let's say it was about 8 guys. And he had a lead mold maker at the shop. So this is a guy who is one of his main guys, who is going to be the lead mold maker, and he's going to lead all of us and instruct all of us on what we're going to do to make these molds and stuff. Okay. Now the owner of the shop said, all right, you guys, here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to break down all these sculptures and make all these appliance molds and blah, blah, blah. I won't bore you with all the technical terminology, but anyway, he just basically told us, this is what you guys need to do. This is your lead over here, this guy. So if you run into any problems or you have any questions, talk to the lead. All right, team, go, right? So we were off and running. So I went over and immediately started doing everything that my boss just told us to do.
Right.
Now, the boss didn't list every single step in there. He just said, go do this work. And I went and did it. And because of my knowledge from other shops, I knew all those steps. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I jumped right in and started doing it. Okay. Now, an hour or two later, the lead mold maker guy came over, and he's looking over my shoulder, and he's like, hey Steve, what do you got going on here? And I kind of looked at him, and I go, well, I'm just doing what the boss told us to do. I'm breaking down these molds for these appliances and getting everything ready. And so I kind of walked him through every step that I was going to be doing. And he kept asking me questions like, well, what exactly are you doing here? And I kind of kept looking at him confused, like, are you testing me, or are you asking me like a question? So once again, I gave him, I ran him through all my steps, and I told him everything that I was going to be doing, right? Well, a minute later, the owner of the shop walks up, my boss, and he walks up, and as soon as he walked up, the lead mold maker guy starts telling me, okay, Steve, here's what I need you to do. This is what you need to do. And he literally repeats everything I just told him.
It's so frustrating.
And made it look like he was the one instructing me on how to do it. And he literally, this lead mold maker, had no idea what I was doing until I told him. And now he turned the table on me right in front of my boss.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it look like I was the kid who didn't know what I was talking about. And this guy, this lead mold maker,
Mhm.
literally just learned the process from me on the spot. And that is a story to illustrate what a lot of these people are like in this industry, and how they will take any kind of an opportunity like that and use it to walk all over you. And so that guy continued to be the lead mold maker.
Mhm.
He continued to have probably much higher pay than me, and he continued to be the director of everything we were doing. And yet I knew more than that guy even knew, and just instructed him on everything. So it was just like, wow, what an eye opener that was for me at such a young age to realize, like, oh, these are the kind of personalities that I'm going to be dealing with in this industry. And so I learned very young the type of people that I would be dealing with and how to deal with them. And like we'd already mentioned a few times, starting to develop that thick skin, and learning how to adapt in these situations. But it was crazy. And I've got 100 stories like that.
I believe it. It's gotta take a lot of work to stay positive when something like that happens to you. Because I mean, I know I would be boiling on the inside. I would just be like,
I was confused.
Right.
And then I was boiling. Like, I was like, what is even going on? Why is this guy just repeating everything I told him? But now he's repeating it in a way where he's instructing me as if I am an idiot that didn't know what I was doing. And then I was like, oh my God. And then it clicked. And I was like, oh, of course. He's trying to make it look like he knew what he was doing in front of the boss and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was one of those moments where it was just like, wow, like, you really just did that?
Yeah. Wow.
And then I absolutely called him on it. I didn't do it. I was respectful in front of the boss, and I did not call him on it in front of the boss. I took him aside later and I said, hey, that was super uncool.
Mm-hmm.
And we had words about it. And then honestly, after that, he did have a lot more respect for me and treated me a lot different. And I've noticed that a lot of times in this industry, and it's really unfortunate, but I've had this happen even up until just a number of years ago. It still happens where I'll be working with people that literally have zero respect for you, and they treat you bad until they force you into a confrontation with them, which I hate. And then I do, because I am a very again, very easygoing person to work with. I let everything just kind of brush off my shoulders. I just have a good time.
Yeah.
I like to just be good natured and adapt to whatever situation. But at the same time, I often tell people, like, don't confuse me being nice for a weakness.
Right.
And I let them know, if a situation like this happens, I have no problem letting them know about it and speaking my voice and confronting them about it. I don't want it to get to that point. Are you kidding me? The last thing in the world I want is to be confrontational. But if you're going to push me into a corner like that, I'm going to stand up for myself. And I do. I have no problem standing up for myself. And so oftentimes, though, I have had situations where I deal with people like this who are super disrespectful until I confront them about it. And then the second I confront them about it, then it's like complete respect after that. They like treat me like a human being again, and treat me like an equal and a coworker, and stop, stepping all over me and running me into the ground like they were before. They suddenly have respect. And it's just strange. It's like, why do you just immediately disrespect people and force them into these confrontational situations? And that's one of the things that is tough, about, I think, I don't know, for me, and again, I'm sure this happens in every industry, but that's one of the things I hate having to deal with sometimes in these environments is dealing with certain personalities like that.
No, you're totally right, though. And it's funny that this, not exact theme, but this sort of same vein of the theme has come up a couple times. So kind of what you're mentioning is sort of a bully mentality, right? So it's the old idea of,
Yeah.
you know, how do you stop a bully in school? You got to punch him in the nose. That's not always the best option. I'm not recommending any kids out there do that. But it's kind of the same thing. Like you mentioned earlier, if somebody feels threatened by you, you know what I mean? They're gonna kind of lash out and try and push their
For sure.
authority and kind of
Yep.
try and take control. And
Right.
it falls into the same bully mentality where if somebody's sort of a DB, you know, they'll try and push that because they're threatened by you. And once they realize, oh wait, this person isn't a threat, they're actually on my side, they're totally cool with you. You know, even in the corporate world, you get that all the time. I mean, I run into people all the time whenever I join a new team. There's always at least one person who loves being the teacher's pet, and they'll you can tell they're a little bit threatened because they'll try and like talk down to you a little bit, or like they'll put things on your calendar and they'll just let you know at the last minute, like, oh, I put that on your calendar. You're like, all right, that's fine. But like once you actually have like a one-on-one with these people, whether it's a bully or a douchebag or just the office sort of teacher's pet who is threatened by everybody new, once you actually sort of have that sort of one-on-one with them, they're cool with you. Once they realize you're on the same team, you're not there to take their job. You're here to help them just as much as they can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's very true.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's actually a really great way to deal with the negative atmosphere. So the very last thing on the list was isolated culture. So, you know, one thing I found at sort of what I would consider to be a dream job is you go someplace new and a lot of times it can be kind of siloed. So you go in and you're doing your job, this person's doing their job. The two don't really cross very often. And I think COVID sort of changed the whole thing also because we're way more isolated than we used to be. But it's almost the better the job, the less collaboration there can be sometimes with the different teams that can help them. Again, we were just mentioning people with big egos have a hard time sharing the spotlight a little bit. And it can be a little isolating when you're sort of stuck in this bubble and you feel this pushback from all these different directions. Do you ever get that?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, hey, could I just take 1 minute break really quick?
We've been going for a while. Yeah, totally.
I got to run really quick, but I also I want to grab a jacket. It's starting to get cold out here.
You're outside.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I will hold that thought. I'll be right back.
Absolutely. Oh man. So everybody, we are here with Steve Catronio, who just turned invisible in front of the camera. No, this guy's amazing. So he's been in the visual effects industry for a really, really, really long time. I don't mean to make it sound like he's old, but he's been doing this for a very long time. He's worked on movies like Men in Black and just some major Hollywood effect movies. Right now he works for Disney Imagineering, and his work is next level. Again, you can see on the screen his name is Steve Catronio. Check out his YouTube channel. It's Grimwood Hollow. And you can see some tutorials that he made about some of the work that he's done. And his level of sculpting and some of his tutorials that you can do following his instruction. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. So I am lucky enough to be buddies with this guy. I'll call him my friend. And man, we are really lucky to have him on the show. He's a cool guy. Funny thing though, hopefully David Leffingwell, who usually does the show with me, for everybody watching and listening who doesn't know, hopefully David's watching this right here because Disney is one of David's all-time favorite companies. He has a love-hate relationship with Disney, and Steve is David's all-time favorite guest on the show. I'm going to go on a limb because when we first brought Steve on, David was just nerding out. He was just a kid in a candy shop asking Steve all kinds of questions. So the fact that we have Steve on today and David couldn't be here is pretty great. So hopefully, David, you're watching this. And we will have Steve on again when you're on. But it's pretty funny that he's here and you're not. All right.
Dave.
Exactly. He is gonna kick me the next time he sees me.
Oh man, we'll do it again for sure. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Well, I lost track of the fact that you're outside. Yeah, no, I didn't even think about the fact that you're outside and it's winter time. So, but we're almost done. We've been going for a while.
I was was actually gonna have a pipe. I didn't know if you were gonna do that too, so I was just like sitting out here. But it's actually, dude, we're in Southern California. We don't really have winter out here, but it has been getting a little chillier at nights for sure, which I love. I love the cold because we almost never get that. But this is, come on, this is Southern California cold. Give me a break.
Right, you're not in Ohio. We have snow on the ground here.
Do you really?
We do.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Someday we really want to move somewhere where we have, different seasons.
Well, look, I love Southern California. I want to go someplace where it's just warm and nice all the time. If I could move like onto the equator, that's totally where I would be.
You just need to go to Reseda to one of those garage shops I work at. It's almost just like the equator.
Right, exactly. Or I have to jump in a pool and stand in front of a fan 10 times a day.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. Me and my wife we are totally opposite of that. We love the cold. We love the rain. We love gloomy, cloudy, gray days, and we almost never get that in Southern California. So, like we desperately need to get out of here. We're not beach people. we're all pasty and white, and we live in our house all the time like hermits. So we're not Southern California people, man. We love winter.
That's awesome. That is funny. I'm the same way. So I mean, I can go weeks at a time without leaving the house, and frankly, I think it's kind of awesome. I'm pretty happy about that sometimes.
Yeah, no, we're total homebodies too, man. We love it.
So look, I'm telling you though, seriously, I'm not joking. You mentioned these legends of your industry who are having a hard time sometimes. If you ever leave Disney and you want to start a big business that can make crazy money, I'm telling you, get these guys together and create a shop I'm telling you can go nationwide. Create a shop that sells like makeup kits and FX kits and Halloween stuff. Keep it up all year round. And I'm telling you, with your skills and some of the names that you had mentioned that could be attached to this thing, dude, you'd put Spirit Halloween out of business in a minute.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And let me do your marketing.
It's not something I haven't thought of, believe me. I mean, I've had other businesses before, a lot of different businesses that were all related to this. I mean, the very first legit little business I started when I was like 15 or 16 years old, right after I got into the effects industry. I started a company called Macabre Creations. And I literally, dude, I did it legit. I filed away for a fictitious business license back then. Yeah, I'd fill the paperwork out. And back then, I don't know how it even works now, but they had to publish it in 7 different newspapers. This is just how it was. And then they would send you your paperwork back, and it had a cutout from all 7 of the newspapers stapled on there. It was so weird to show now that your business is legit, that you have a legitimate business, and then you got like your resale number and all that stuff. And so I literally started my own little company then, and I was making like little products and stuff. I did like skull candle holders and bowls, and I did these cut off rat head keychains for an exterminator company.
That's pretty awesome.
It was funny. I like just all kinds of random stuff. And I used to sell products at Renaissance fairs and stuff like that. And I used to make all these like crazy kind of like little Halloween props and little decorations and stuff. But never went, it never went big or anything. It was just, I would sell them, at craft fairs and Renaissance fairs and stuff or whatever. But it was fun. And then I've done other things throughout the years too. I've had some other businesses, and I had my own effect shop. Like I had a business partner for years, and we had our own legitimate effect shop, and we did movies and different things and stuff. But I have often thought about getting something going again. I have a product that I've made many times, sold hundreds of them for the last 33 years. I've been making these. Okay. And I've never gone big with them. And it just keeps nagging at me. Like it's the one thing that I go back to over and over and over and over again in my head. And I'm like, I have to do that one day. Like, I really want to turn this into a legit business. Every time I think about it, it excites me because I really enjoy making these things. And I feel like that's what's been calling to me for like 30 something years. And I keep going, why don't I go back to this, really map it out, plan it out well, get a really great product line going, and launch this thing in the right way. And now we have, you know, we have everything now. We have social media for marketing and networking. We have the internet. You can, you know, you can reach the whole world now. Back when I was doing this stuff, that didn't exist.
Oh, totally.
So we have, you know, there's so many ways now to promote your business and everything. And so, yeah, believe me, I have literally thought a lot about doing something like that, launching another little business or something. And maybe that's chapter 3 in my life. Maybe that's what I'll do.
Look, I'm telling you, honestly, with your skill level, it would be, I don't want to jinx it, but it would be easy. Seriously.
Well, thanks, bud. I appreciate the confidence and the kind words. I don't know if I have as much confidence in it, but well, it's, you know, it's tough. There are, believe it or not, over the past, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years, there's actually quite a few effects artists who have now done exactly what you're saying, because it's out of necessity. There's not as much work in the effects industry. So they've gone, hey, what can I utilize my skills for? What other industry could utilize these skills that I have? And so a handful of effects artists have now opened up their own Halloween prop companies. And so, and it's really good art. You know, these are guys that were amazing artists in the effects industry, are now sculpting and creating these awesome masks and creatures and props for the Halloween industry and the professional haunt industry. And there is a market for that, you know, and they're doing pretty well. I think some of them are doing really well. I don't know about all of them, but I know some of them are doing well. And so it is absolutely something I've thought about over the years.
Look, just let me do your marketing. I'll do it for free, just to be associated with it. But you know what gets me? So I think about you every time I see these things. So around Halloween, you see the houses that are lucky enough to have those big 12-foot tall skeletons, right?
Oh yeah.
So those things sell at Lowe's, and they probably cost 12 cents to produce because they're made in some factory in China somewhere. And if you look at them up close, the craftsmanship isn't good at all, frankly.
Yeah.
But these things,
absolutely.
So I think they retail for around $100, something like that. Not a lot, but you can never find them in stores. So you find them on eBay for 10 times, in some cases, what you see them for in the stores if you could ever find them. And I'm just thinking, like, what's stopping these companies from mass producing it? There's probably a supply-demand thing they're trying to maintain. But, like, if you actually had a really good artist like yourself who could actually make something that could get that kind of demand, I mean, you could mass produce those for 2 Halloweens and be set for the rest of your life. If you produced enough of them. I mean, one of my clients was Big Lots for a number of years. Yeah. And towards the end of my run with them, they had this skeleton dragon that, again, mass produced in China, but some local company.
I remember that.
Company in the States actually commissioned it to be made. And man, they sold a bajillion of these things because nobody had seen it before. It was brand new, and it was pretty cool, frankly. And they sold so many of these things. It was nuts. And I'm telling you, that thing, that dragon's skeleton thing, was not nearly the level of work that I've seen on your YouTube channel.
Well, thanks, bud. Yeah, I mean, they obviously have the money and the resources to create a product line like that, to create those products. I'm just some guy. We don't even own a home. We're renting our house. I make a decent living, but for Southern California, it's just so expensive to live here. I don't have a ton of extra income to be able to even invest in something like that, to get like a product line going or something. So that's a big part of it is trying to find, and even back when I was doing my haunted haunted house, my professional haunt, that was part of the problem that we ran into even back then, is trying to either find partners and investors who are willing to, believe in you, believe in your product, believe in your attraction or whatever, and want to partner up with you. Or you have to either try to take out small business loans, or like what I did for my haunt. I literally I took out like 5 or 6 credit cards, and because I had amazing credit, and I still have good credit. So I just took out a bunch of credit cards and I maxed them out, like spent a ton of money on credit. And then fortunately our haunt did pretty well, and I was able to pay off all that debt at the end of, October, the end of the haunt season and stuff. And so, that, I guess, that's one way you could try to fund doing a product line or something. But the thing about like, I have friends who are also in the effects industry who have done custom props and sculptures for some of the big Halloween chains, the big stores. And they get paid hardly anything for that.
Right, yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, they don't get paid a lot for that. And then, of course, what happens immediately is they take your awesome sculpture and then it's sent overseas, and then it goes through what's called like a number of generations of what's called tooling, which is all the mold making for manufacturing. And just the nature of the tooling process and the many generations, eventually your sculpture gets dumbed down to something that doesn't look nearly as cool as what you originally sculpted. and unfortunately, that's the trade-off with with things that are mass produced. You can get something for a lot less money, but it's way harder to get quality, right?
Right.
So that's where the challenge comes in. Like when I was hand making things to sell, it's a lot of labor to hand make everything yourself, right? And then you want to charge prices that reflect that reflect all the hours you put into it.
Right.
And no one wants to pay that. Everyone wants to pay the mass produced in China prices. They don't want to pay the artist who's sitting at home custom painting and sculpting and cranking this stuff out for hours and hours and hours. They want to pay, these mass produced prices. And so that's where it really becomes tricky. So do you make something and then hand it off to a production facility that's going to mass produce it, and you lose quality,
right?
But you can sell a massive volume of it and, possibly make a lot of money? Or do you keep all the work in-house and charge more but sell less? So it's kind of this.
It's the balance.
And then obviously you have quality control over it, which is nice, but it's just a ton of labor. It's so much labor. Every time I got into selling my own products and mass producing stuff, I just got burnt out on it so fast. Because you just feel like a factory after a while. There's the first time you make them, it's exciting. You're like, ooh, this is fun. These are exciting. And you get to the 10th one that you're painting and casting and molding, and you're like, I'm done with these. I don't ever want to make another one, and I'm exaggerating. I mean, there were products I made where I made hundreds of them, but you really do get burnt out, especially as an artist. I mean, the exciting thing about being an artist is creating new art, not being a factory and just cranking out the same thing over and over again. So from a business model, that's probably smarter because, it would probably make you more money to have things mass produced and sell a lot more of them to the masses and to the people and more volume, but as an artist, there's not much that's enticing about that because you want to always be creating new art and stuff. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make total sense. Those the dragon skeleton guys. So I was at the company when this was all going down, so I have a little bit of firsthand experience with this one at least.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that they didn't sink a ton of money into this thing. So they produced the prototype. I think they had 10 10 copies made originally to send to different, retailers to see who would buy who would buy it in mass quantities. And
Yeah.
I only know that because I was in a meeting where one of our VPs was playing. She's like, "This is so cool," and she's like moving it around, and we're like, "Don't touch it! Don't touch it!" And literally, as soon as we said that, the head came off and it crashed to the ground and shattered. And she's
Oh
like,
my God.
"Yeah, exactly."
Oh my God.
So yeah, that was pretty funny. Luckily, it wasn't me. But so they made 10 prototypes and they shopped it around. I think they had some sort of an agent. I got to find out what their agent deal was. But they had some sort of an agent that shopped them around to these big retailers. And whatever
Yeah.
retailer was going to buy the most amount of these things in mass, that's who they went with, and it was us.
Wow.
And
yeah.
these guys made bucket loads. I know the next Halloween,
Sure.
they had a much wider. They had more money to play with, obviously, so they had a bigger line of products and they sold a lot more stuff. But here's the thing that you know as well as anybody else with Halloween props is as soon as one good idea is out there, it's immediately copied by a dozen other people. So they couldn't do this skeleton thing anymore because now they had a whole zoo of skeletons to compete with. But yeah, I'm telling you. And here's the interesting thing. So last week, David and I, one of the topics that we touched on was the idea that your product doesn't necessarily have to be better than your competitor, but you need to communicate it better than your competitor does, right? So
Sure.
Look, hypothetically, in a perfect world where you and some of these old school legends got together and started this brand, just putting a name on a name of one of these guys on a makeup kit or a prop kit, I mean, could sell thousands of these things. So look, just food for thought. I'm just planting that seed in your brain right there.
All right, it's planted. No, it is cool. It's a great idea. It's fun. I've thought about very similar things many times, and I continue to think about those things all the time because, to tell you the truth, if there's one thing that is very consistent about the entertainment industry, it's that it's not consistent, and it's
right. Yeah, totally.
It is. There's nothing about it that is ever 100% stable or predictive. Predictable. It's you never know what can happen, and when your job is going to be all gone. It's they're trying to be careful about this, but things are changing all the time.
Yeah.
Where I work, and I don't know what the future holds. I really don't. So that's something that I think about often is what at this point in my life, what would I do? Like if I wasn't working anymore at Disney, what are my options these days? I fortunately years and years ago learned how to become a digital sculptor.
Yeah.
In fact, I was actually, no joke, I was the guy that ushered digital sculpting and the ZBrush program into Disney, into Imagineering. I was the first one to use it and the first one to do any digital sculpting with it. And I embraced it as reluctant as I was to do it, because I really kind of hated computers. I still have a love-hate thing for them.
Right.
But it was all about survival and about adapting and learning that. I learned how to do digital sculpting, but to tell you the truth, even with like all my crazy background and experience and my resume and how versatile I am with the different aspects of the entertainment industry, if I wasn't at Disney right now, I honestly don't even know what my options are anymore. The industry has changed so much. And like I told you earlier in the show tonight, there's no way I could go back to working on movies again. It would absolutely kill me.
Yeah.
Nor do I don't even know if I could get a job in the movie industry. Like they probably wouldn't want my old broken butt working at their shop anyway. Like, there's 100,000 18-year-old kids that are dying to get into those effect shops, and they'll work for a fraction of what I need to make. They'll work for, $10 an hour just to be working at an effects shop and be
Right.
excited about it, and they'll work 20 hours a day and kill themselves, and I can't even do that. I can't compete with that. And so I don't even know if I could even work in that industry anymore. And as far as digital sculpting goes, digital sculptors are a dime a dozen these days. There's, you know, a million kids coming out of college that are really well versed on a lot of different digital programs, and they jump right into the video game industry and the movie industry. And again, like someone like me, like, you know, could I be an asset? Absolutely. I have some crazy experience. But at the same time, if they can get an 18-year-old kid for a fraction of what I cost, chances are they'd probably just grab some youngster and let them do the digital sculpting, you know? So anyway, to your point, like, I'm always thinking about options. I'm thinking about, like, you know, would I want to jump back into the hunt industry professionally? Would I want to start a product line with some of the product ideas that I have, or what would I do? I don't know. It's always something that's playing around in my head, and I'm not sure which direction I would go.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing, right? I mean, but that's something that David and I always talk about is, you know, at least start planting the seeds for what you might want to do right now.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's coming up next. And honestly,
right.
You know, something that could be just a side gig just for something extra to do could end up being the thing that changes your entire trajectory, you know?
Right. Absolutely. It's true.
So, but look, it's, we've been going for a while now. It's been so much fun having you on, man. And I know
thanks,
David
guys.
is super jealous. We got to have you back on when he's here because he nerds out every time your name comes up.
Oh man, thank you. Well, it's always fun. Always have a blast with you guys, and just let me know, man. Next time you guys want to do it, I'll come on and we can talk more about this crazy industry or whatever. I'm good with talking about anything.
Well, we will take you up on that. Honestly, it's
cool.
Always fun to have you on, and some of your stories. I wish you were a much more terrible person, because some of the stories that you could tell, I'm sure would just curl people's hair at times. So,
I've got no problem telling some of those stories, Wes. Like, if you wanna have a whole show all about the dirt that I have, okay, I'll tell you. I'll leave you with.
Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get yourself in trouble.
No. No, I'm not gonna tell a story. I'm just gonna leave you with this thought.
Okay.
I recently started putting a diary together of all of these stories.
Yeah.
So that I wouldn't forget them, because, you know, after 35 years I've been in this industry, you start to kind of forget some of these stories, and some of them are so crazy I don't want to forget them. So I got a little notebook diary, and I started writing down all of these insane stories from my time in the effects industry.
Yeah.
And if you ever want, we can do a show, and I'll just flip through that book and point to some, and we'll just start reading some crazy stories, and I'll share them with you, because there are some insane stuff it's so fun.
That's awesome. Two things come to mind. One, you have a best-selling book right there. And two,
that might be part of why I'm doing this.
And two, I'm picturing sitcom.
Oh man.
Think about a sitcom with those stories, right?
Oh my god, that would be funny. And then we could have like recreations of those stories with actors and stuff. And
exactly. So okay, you ever seen the show? It was better when it was on YouTube and not actually a TV show. You ever seen the show Drunk History?
Oh dude, we love that show. It's so fun.
Imagine that with your stories.
Dude, it would work. Trust me, it would be crazy. Like there are stories I have that people would not even believe. Like, it's just too crazy. Like, it's one of those things where, again, it's like, how many times have you said that, you know, true life is so much crazier than fiction?
Yeah.
And that kind of defines my time in the effects industry. Like, the things that happen, the stories I have, like, I could have never dreamed this stuff would have ever happened, and yet it did. And so I had to document them and compile them into a book and try to remember them all. And I'm just like a fraction of the way through all of my time in the industry and the movies I worked on, and it's already got to be like just, I don't even know, 30 pages of crazy stories. And
Yeah.
it's not, I don't write the whole story out. I just write like a simple idea of what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I can remember it, So think about that, like 30 pages of all these different crazy stories in there. It's insane, man.
Dude. Yeah. We got to talk. We got to talk real business sometime, because you can make some money on this. We're gonna make this happen.
It'd be fun, man. I'd love to do it.
Oh, dude, honestly. Well, yeah, you stick around. Everybody else, I've been West. This guy's been Steve Catronio. Check him out on Grimwood Hollow.
Cheers.
Exactly. I'm out of beer, but I had some. It all disappeared somehow. But check out Steve's work on Grimwood Hollow. His tutorials and his craftsmanship, artistry is just, it's mind-blowing how good this guy is. I'm not even like kissing his butt right now. He's really that good.
Thanks, buddy.
So, yeah, Steve, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you, Wes. I had a blast, and hope everyone has an awesome night.
Absolutely. See ya.